I'm covered, yeah. Not in gold or pearls or fame, but under his name.
Hello, welcome, ladies. How are you?
Shalom.
Good.
Good.
So this is episode I'm not sure what of Bible Doulas. We are just pumping out amazing ideas that have come on sort of one branching off of another. The last show that we put up was myself and Tracy. We were talking about hidden food ingredients that Bible believers should be aware of. And that spurred into the idea of doing this show tonight about food as well. But we're going to be talking with Tracy Myers, who is a carnivore, and Yael, who is a vegan. And when I first found out that you were a vegan, I was like, what? A Torah keeper who's a vegan? And now I've discovered there's all kinds of people who keep Torah and don't eat meat. So we thought tonight we could have a grown-up girls conversation where nobody gets too emotional and nobody attacks the other person for, I mean, there's a reason I asked you two ladies who, as we were saying off camera, are my actual friends. Like we know a lot of people online, but I actually consider you guys friends, for whatever that's worth. It's been nice to get to know you both over the last, I don't know, 2 years or something like that. I think I didn't know either of you really until we recorded your testimonies, and that's been a blessing for me. That's how it's like this secret way for me to make friends is to have that channel where I interview people. So welcome tonight, both of you. Um,
Thank you.
so I thought, why don't just very briefly to start off to introduce yourselves, specifically with regard to your diet. So let us know why you have chosen the diet that you have chosen, and then I'll read some scriptures and we can just continue the conversation like that. So I'll ask you, Tracy, who you do actually name yourself a carnivore, but I don't think that's always been the case. You're a homesteader and you mostly eat meat, if I understand correctly.
Yeah. Well, I'm more of like a dirty carnivore. There's different types of carnivores. So some people are just strict carnivore. They just eat meat, salt and butter. That's it. They don't add anything. Like me, I still like herbs and vegetables that I will cook with my meat. And so dirty carnivores, that's what they call it because I don't know why, but so. Yeah, I mean, I've had health issues. Like my mom always said I was the sickly child because like if my brother and sister got the flu, it was a couple days and they were good. Me, I was sick for a whole week and then had to go to the hospital, dehydrated. And so like that's just how I was, just sensitive and um I don't remember the first time I got a migraine, but I was preteen, probably elementary. I started getting migraines really bad. Um, and then I started having like stomach issues, acid reflux, and things like that. That's something that I struggled with until I tried carnivore, which was when I first tried carnivore, it was only for 30 days. And I did that probably 3 years ago. And the first week that I did that, my migraines went away and my acid reflux went away. And I haven't had them since. And I used to get migraines at least one a week, really bad, for 20 plus years. And so the first week they went away. And like I said, I haven't had one in 3 years. So, um, and then I lost 40 pounds just as a bonus because I just did it for health reasons, not to lose weight. And so after the 30 days, I went back to just eating what I normally did, which was, I would say, pretty healthy, whole foods, vegetables, fruit, stuff like that. Some breads and pastas. And that stuff just, it makes me bloat. And if I eat certain like red sauces or acidic stuff, it makes my acid reflux come up again. So I just have to be careful what I eat. And so with that, when I eat meat and stuff, I feel my best. And actually, see, before I was a little overweight and I kind of looked pregnant. but it's because I was bloated and I didn't know I was bloated. So like that went away too when I did carnivore. And so like when I eat vegetables and certain things like that or pastas, it makes me bloat. So that's why I just eat what makes me feel good and what, works with my body. And so let's see, at the end of 23, I started having symptoms like fast heart rate, like tachycardia. And then it went from that to like my legs and my ankles started swelling up. And then I started to get like muscle weakness and stuff. So I went to the doctor just to get a diagnosis because I'm more naturally minded, holistically minded, however you want to say that. And so I went to the doctor to get a diagnosis because obviously there was something wrong. I don't just go to the doctor, you know what I'm saying, to have them poke and prod and like I don't really go to doctors. So anyways, I went and I was diagnosed with Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune condition and it causes hyperthyroidism. So like some people get hypo, which just means their thyroid's not producing enough hormones, but mine was hyper and so it was producing way too much. And so, your thyroid makes hormones for every cell in your entire body. So it was affecting, my heart, my brain, my muscles, everything. And so, um, like I said, I went and got my diagnosis, and then I was going to go to a holistic doctor to be treated naturally, which like I had to go and get like an ultrasound of my heart, and the heart doctor pretty much berated me the whole time because I told him I refused the thyroid medication. I wanted to try it natural stuff first. And so he's like, "Well, I don't know what they're gonna be able to do for you," or so and I was like, "Well, I believe in God and I believe that God gave us medicine. And so I'm gonna go that route first." And he's like, "Well, I believe in God too. And I believe that, he gave us doctors and modern medicine and all this stuff." And it's like, well, that's fine, but this is what I'm choosing to do. So I went to the holistic doctor and they wanted me to eat like it's like an AIP diet, autoimmune protocol, and it's mostly vegetables. And so I wanted to do carnivore, but I told her I would try it her way first because I knew carnivore helped me in the past, and I kind of know how my body is with vegetables and things. And so I don't know, it was months that I was on that diet. And I mean, my labs were a little bit better, but my some of my symptoms got worse. Like I was tired all the time. I couldn't like stay awake through the day because I had no energy after that. And it didn't really help with my muscle weakness or anything like that. And so after that, then I said, I want to try carnivore. And, you know, even though some of the holistic doctors have their own way, like they're still taught that like meat's bad and stuff like that. So that was one of her concerns about me eating meat. But she said that, she would, just kind of watch and see what happens. She was open to letting me choose. And so then I started doing carnivore again. And then within a short amount of time, like my symptoms improved like 75%. And my labs were the best that they had been the whole time, doing holistic stuff and eating, vegetables and everything and tinctures and stuff. So carnivore helped me again. And so that's why I just choose to eat this way. I mean, I still will have some fruit here and there or, things like that, but I mostly eat meat. So that's like the main part of my diet. And really, if you look in nature, hyper carnivores like lions, they can eat 70% meat and the other 30%, they can eat fungi, fruit, and other things too. So, but that doesn't mean that they're not a carnivore. You know what I'm saying? Because like some people in
They're
the
just
carnivore
dirty. They're
community,
dirty. They're dirty carnivores, those lions.
yeah. Well, because in the carnivore community, people are like, oh, well, if you're eating that, then you're just doing keto. You're not a carnivore. And
Well,
it's like,
that's it. And
okay, but
I think that's what we're trying to avoid tonight is to have those like
yeah,
I again asked you two specifically because in various facets. You're not extremists. You know what I mean? Like we're on this
Yeah.
very similar path, all three of us. We have different opinions.
Yeah.
I just was on the Daniel fast, so I'll say a little bit about my diet, and then I'll pass it to the other extreme, not really
Yeah.
extreme,
Well,
moderate
that's
extreme.
why I actually started my own carnivore group because of that. I call them the
Yeah.
carnivore police because people attack you if you
I
don't
saw you
eat
call
strict
it dirty
carnivore and
carnivore, and I was trying to understand why it was dirty carnivore. Now I
well,
understand. Yael's like all
yeah.
carnivores are dirty. No, I'm kidding. But so I just finished
Well,
the
and it's biblically clean too. It's
Yeah,
biblically clean,
exactly.
dirty carnivore.
Yeah,
So
when
yeah.
I have flirted with carnivore diets in the past before this path, it was heavy on the bacon, for example. I was eating bacon and eggs every morning, and I felt like I was doing the healthy thing, you know? So I spent most of my life as a vegetarian, largely due to spiritual beliefs. I, as you guys know, was heavy into yoga, and it was the belief of reincarnation and the belief of ahimsa, which is a tenet of kindness and not killing. The yoga has, an equivalent of a knockoff version of the Ten Commandments, and one of them is do not kill, basically. So I spent most of my life as a vegetarian, and then I started eating meat, and that was kind of just it. And then I started eating biblically clean once I discovered that the food laws were for us. So I have no emotional. Oh, I'm gonna have to let my cat in a second. I can hear him scratching. I forgot he was there. I have no emotional attachment to this subject. I saw a post up the other day where somebody had said, if the Bible, we all went back and looked at that because it was kind of on the day when we decided that we were going to do this recording together. If you discovered you were not supposed to eat meat as per
Mhm.
the Father, would you stop eating it? I absolutely would, because he's more important than anything to me and how he wants us to walk. So other than that, I have no attachment or preference. Like I just came off the Daniel fast and I felt great. I didn't feel like I was missing meat, you know. Now last night I had spaghetti and meatballs and I was super happy. And Jesse and I went for steak the other night and I was super happy, but I didn't. Anyway, so I'm just saying I'm super neutral. I've lived as a meat eater and as a vegetarian, and I'm here to listen to you guys. So I'm gonna, you can start if you want, Yael. I'm just gonna let the cat in. Let me pause it 1 second, please. Sorry. Okay, thank you. So Yael, if you want to give us your a quick food testimony and why you are a dirty vegan. No, just kidding.
Okay. My backstory goes back to about 10 years ago. I was in a lot of pain, have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Um, I was actually at one point I couldn't walk across Costco without having to send my kids for a wheelchair. I was in a lot of pain, chronic pain patient, going the medical route at the time. And just really messed up. At the same time, my brother had colon cancer. He had Crohn's disease um, that he dealt with his whole life, but last 4 years of his life, he dealt with colon cancer in addition. And so the doctors had given him a diet of like what he should eat with Crohn's disease, and he didn't want to eat that. And I was upset with him. I was like, why won't you just eat what they tell you to eat? You know, like maybe that wouldn't have cured him, but it might have extended his life or made his misery less. And he told me he just wanted to be happy. He just wanted to eat what he wanted to eat. And that was upsetting to me that he was putting food above health. And then I realized like I was doing the same thing. Um, because I was sitting down and having like the chili cheeseburgers with him and the sodas and chili cheese fries. And I was expecting him to take care of himself, but I wasn't doing it. So at that point, I just started craving meat less and less. It just like wasn't something that I enjoyed as much. Um, kind of lost the taste for it. Like chicken started tasting sour to me, and beef just wasn't inspiring. So I thought, well, I'll be a pescatarian. I'll just have fish as my protein because we gotta have protein. And that didn't go well for very long because I became allergic to fish, and I was getting hives up my arm and across my back, and it was lasting for days, and so that wasn't pleasant. When I put that together after about three rounds of that, I was like, I guess I'm just a vegetarian now. So I was a vegetarian for most of a year. I had one time that I had meat, and this is before I came to Torah. Um, so on the way back from my brother's funeral, I wanted to stop at a restaurant because they had a peanut slaw, like a coleslaw that has peanuts in it. And the place was nicknamed, in my head, I nicknamed it Ribland because they had ribs there. You know, they have all the barbecue. And we went in there and I like smelled the ribs and I saw the ribs and I was like, I'm ordering ribs. And my whole family was like, what are you doing? You're a vegetarian. And I was like, shut up. I know what I'm doing, you know? And so I ordered a full rack of pork ribs. And I that first rib, I got put up to my mouth, took a bite. I was like sick in my heart because I threw away like 6 months at this point of being vegetarian. My mouth was super happy. Like this was everything that I wanted. Um, but my stomach and my heart were sick. And so I remember sitting there just thinking, like, what is it that I really want here? I don't think it's the meat. Like, I wanted the texture of like the chewiness of the meat. I wanted the smokiness of the barbecue. I wanted like the sweetness of the sauce, but I didn't really want the meat. And I thought I could do this with like seitan. I could do this with mushrooms. I could do this with tofu. I don't need meat. And so that was the last time that I had it. Um, so then I was just a vegetarian. And that went all right for like a year. I was just cooking the meat for my family separately from my food. So like if we had spaghetti, then I would make the sauce and the noodles and stuff, but then I would make them some meat crumbles on the side that we could add into their sauce. And it went like that, but I felt like my family was kind of thinking I was insane. So I started showing my husband like food documentaries to show him that like it was better for his body and everything. And didn't seem to be making any effect. I mean, we went to a steakhouse. He got like the t-shirt for eating the champion steak. Like he was literally a champion meat eater. And then one day, you know, looking back, this is on a Saturday, which would have been Shabbat, but we weren't in Torah at the time. We were at the grocery store and it was the day before Super Bowl. So I was trying to get him all of his Super Bowl foods because I would always cook him up this big old feast. And I was like, okay, we need the chicken wings and you need your coffee creamer and all this stuff. And he said, well, actually, I've been thinking about going vegan. And I was like, who are you? And where's my husband? um, it was just so rude, really. Like I was gonna make him those chicken wings. And so put back all the meat stuff, Googled how to make like cauliflower buffalo wings, and made him his Super Bowl feast that was all vegan. And I said, I'll do this for you, like to support you, but when I'm not around you, when I'm at work or whatever, I'll be vegetarian. And 9 days later, I had a yogurt parfait in the morning for breakfast. I had a goat cheese sandwich for lunch, and I was sick that night. And so that was the last time I had milk. And I just thought it's not worth it. My body doesn't want it. My mouth still did. But you know, my body said no. And so I was listening to that. I lost a lot of weight right away. I gave up eggs because I didn't really like them. So I was like, I guess I'm just a vegan now. That's it. And within, I would say within the year, I wasn't having to use my handicap placard anymore. I have a permanent handicap placard in California. Um, I haven't had to apply for that in my new state. Um, I was able to move. It just gave me back my life to have the mobility and not have like the constant pain and everything. So it was really a great thing for my body. I know all of our bodies respond differently to different things, but it helped me a lot. I think it was just because it cut back on the inflammation.
Mhm.
And so I was able to function again. And then we came to Torah, and have to say that it was very easy to come into Torah being a vegan, because everything that Torah deals with, clean and unclean, is all having to do with meat and animal products. And we'd already cut all that stuff out. So I was like, done. Simple. What's the next thing, you know? But we've been doing this for 8 years now. And it's worked pretty well.
It's wild, right? I've always wondered why when people have different health issues, like you both are perfect examples, and people will swear carnivore healed me and people will swear raw vegan healed me. We're all human beings. We're all, you know, built essentially the same way. And I always thought it was like maybe because we cut out the inflammation, like, you know, if you go on a strict raw vegan diet and you stop eating cereals and this kind of stuff, it would make sense and have the same effect as somebody who's just eating meat and vegetables, I think.
Yeah.
Well, for me, I did that and just ate vegetables and it didn't help me. So, you know, and like I said, even in the past, I ate a lot of vegetables. Like we would cook a little bit of meat, but honestly, I wasn't a huge meat fan before. I like chicken, but beef and stuff, you know, I'm weird about textures and stuff. So, you know, I loved pasta and vegetables and fruit and just whole foods. And so that was what I ate before I was carnivore. And like I said, I ate that during just mostly vegetables and stuff for months, and it didn't help me. And so the meat helped me. So it wasn't like I was eating a bunch of junk, you know? So I think it's just our bodies, because, like, you know, with Crissi, I'm glad that helped you, you know? And I think it just shows that, you know, different things work for different people and some things don't work. You know, something that might work for me might not work for you, because like eating carnivore gave me my life back as well, because like some days it was hard for me just to walk, you know, because my muscles were so weak and I was just so sick all the time. And like even just with the natural stuff, I tried that for a year and it was just like a roller coaster. I would start to feel better and then I would just go back to being sick and just, you know, and it was just really hard. And so, but yeah, I mean, carnivore was the only thing that really helped. So that's why I just eat that way, because it's like with you, I love pasta and like vegetables and stuff, but when I eat it, then it makes me feel sick or I get bloated and you know what I mean? I pay for it later. So for me, it's not worth it, even though I like the taste of it and stuff. So it's kind of like Crissi, but just the opposite, you know? So
Amazing. Thank you
yeah,
guys for, I mean, thank you for your testimonies. That I want to read
yeah,
this. You guys probably both know where I'm going to go with this, to open up Romans 14, 1-4. And I'm not saying because you're vegan, you're weak in the faith. I don't think Paul was saying that either.
no, I don't
Accept
think he was.
anyone who is weak in the faith, but don't argue about disputed matters. One person believes he may eat anything, while one who is weak eats only vegetables. One who eats must not look down on the one who does not eat, and one who does not eat must not judge one who does, because God has accepted him. Who are you to judge another's household servant? Before his own Lord he stands or falls, and he will stand because the Lord is able to make him stand. And then I'm going to skip to 9:15. So 14:9-15. Sorry, it's a big study Bible and I'm trying to see. There we go. Christ died and returned to life for this, that he might be Lord over both the dead and the living. But you, why do you judge your brother or sister? Or you, why do you despise your brother or sister? For we will all stand before the judgment seat of God. For it is written, as I live, says the Lord, every knee will bow to me, every tongue will give praise to God. So then each of us will give an account of himself to God. Therefore, let us no longer judge one another. Instead, decide never to put a stumbling block or pitfall in the way of your brother or sister. I know and am persuaded in the Lord Jesus that nothing is unclean in itself. We can talk about that in a minute. Still, to someone who considers a thing to be unclean, to that one is unclean. For if your brother or sister is hurt by what you eat, you are no longer walking according to love. Do not destroy by what you eat someone for whom Christ died. Wow, right? So I think probably, I've never heard that argument specifically, but I'm assuming that people use that passage to say that they can eat pork.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and also they use it out of context to say that like vegans are weak in the faith because all they eat is vegetables, but that's not the context. It's, you know, they didn't know it was about, the meat in the meat market and not eating meat that might have been sacrificed to idols and they didn't know. And so they just chose to eat vegetables instead of eating the meat. And so if Paul ate that meat, he might make them stumble. So he chose not to eat it if that was the case. And so that's the context of all of that. And so, yeah, it's just, I think Christians twist it and then also other people twist it, they twist the scriptures and the context matters. So,
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and if being vegan makes me weaker, I don't care if it's used to the Father's glory. If he could use that, then I'll be weaker.
yeah, it's not the case. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
We
yeah,
were talking a little bit, both of you were kind of around, but not fully in the group that we did the Daniel fast with. Crissi, you had some ideas that were helpful in the beginning for people who are not used to eating vegan, or yeah, I mean it was essential, it was a vegan diet really, and I felt
Yeah.
like I was thriving on it. And it's the middle of winter, which was kind of a weird timing for me. Normally I would feel like eating meat and like heavy stuff. Um, but it was really interesting what came up with the dialogue surrounding why and when Daniel fasted. And if I'm, you guys maybe have been reading the Bible for longer than me, for sure you have actually. um I think that Daniel was avoiding, like, do you think that they would have been eating unclean meats and that's why he decided to stop eating it? Is that kind of the gist of why he stopped?
from from my understanding, that's why he chose to eat the vegetables instead of, defiling himself. And I think, yeah, honored that. And so he strengthened them, instead of them, you know, basically transgressing against the Father.
Hmm.
Well,
That's my understanding, but I don't know.
that's my understanding also, that is probably sacrificed to idols, but also he didn't have the access to the meat at the temple. Um, that was, that's pretty much like a barbecue for the neighborhood, right? So he didn't have access to the clean meats that were sacrificed there. And so cutting it out, I can see that. Even if it wasn't sacrificed to idols, which we're pretty sure that it was because, he's in Babylon, right?
Or maybe it wasn't killed according to the Father's instructions,
Hmm.
you know, maybe that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really for sure, but that's, yeah.
Could have been multifaceted.
Yeah.
We do know that he looked better after he ate a bunch of vegetables. I'm just saying.
I wanted to read too,
Mm.
from Colossians 2:16. You guys know this one well. This is another one that is cherry picked to tell people like us not to judge others. People like us. You see, I guess that's the common thread and should remain the common thread when we're talking about. Uh, I think these are secondary and tertiary matters. I don't know. I do know, Crissi, that okay, do we want to talk about this? Let me read Colossians and then we're going to talk about Passover. Okay.
Okay.
Colossians 2:16. Therefore, do not let anyone judge you in regard to food and drink, or in the matter of a festival, or a new moon, or a Sabbath day. These are a shadow of what was to come. The substance is Christ. Let no one condemn you by delighting in ascetic practices and the worship of angels, claiming access to visionary realm. Such people are inflated by empty notions of their spiritual mind. He doesn't hold on to the head, from whom the whole body, nourished and held together by its ligaments and tendons, grows with growth from God. If you died, I'm just going to go to 23. If you died with Christ to the elements of this world, why do you live as if you still belong to the world? Why do you submit to regulations? Don't handle, don't taste, don't touch. All these regulations refer to what is destined to perish by being used up. They are human commands and doctrines. Although these have a reputation for wisdom by promoting self-made religion, false humility, and severe treatment of the body, they are not of any value in curbing self-indulgence. So, especially in 16:2:16, I mean, I I am under the impression that the majority of Christianity interprets this completely backward to the rest of us, where I think that
Mm.
it's telling people to back off from the people who want to participate in the Sabbaths, the new moons, um and the people who don't want to be eating the pig. That's what I think that it is, and it gets turned around because the context of who he was speaking to is lost when you don't read the first two-thirds of the Bible.
Yeah, and I think the other thing too is what he's addressing as well when you see some of that stuff is people who actually didn't eat meat, and they were saying that you had to fast on certain days and to get to your higher self, basically, you don't want to eat meat and you don't want to do these things. And he's basically saying, no, we're going to do the things that Yah said we can do, right? And so don't judge, and that's some of the stuff he's talking about there in the context. If you study the history and stuff, because even back then they had groups of people who were like, don't eat meat. If you want to be holy, all these things, this is how you do it, right? You got to fast and you got to do all these things to, you know, get your body in line or whatever, I don't know what the group was called. But yeah, I mean, there back then they had that. And even like when we see, I don't know which scripture it is where he talks about the doctrines of demons in the latter days. And one of those things is saying that we can't eat foods that Yah said we can eat, right? And so that kind of goes into this topic of meat because Yah said we can eat it. So if you say, no, we shouldn't, it's a sin, then that's a doctrine of demons, right? Because Yah said we can. So it's sticking to what Yah says, right? Just the scriptures. Now, if you don't want to eat it, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. If you want to eat it, eat it. But I have a problem when people say it's a sin if you don't eat it or if you do eat it. That's where I have an issue, with
So
it.
do people say that it's a sin to eat meat aside from what's in Leviticus 11? Do people actually say that we should not be eating meat? Like Chrissy's
Yes.
presented a personal conviction, and you can get into more, Chrissy, if you want, but from what you're saying, it's health reasons. Like it's not, I don't know if you have a spiritual or an emotional reason for not eating meat.
Well, I did do it for health reasons. Um, I can see a lot of the ethical reasons behind it now. Make a lot of sense. Um, Personally, I think those verses that you just read was more about that there were people that are practicing other religions and things like that, and you're not supposed to let anybody judge you for keeping the Sabbath, for keeping his days. Like these are all things that you're supposed to be doing, so don't let people judge you for that. Um, but I think that I'll be getting into it later on about some of the biblical backup that I see, but yeah. And there are people that would condemn people for eating meat, that say, like if you are eating um, meat, then you are not following the Father, that you're doing demonic things.
And could that like I don't see that in scripture. I mean, I don't, if you can speak to, even if it's not what you agree with, Chrissy, like we were talking about the potential of having some people on this show with us tonight who are a little bit more extreme in their thinking, and we decided not to because I think you two couldn't handle it. Again, I'm like, I have no opinion here, guys, go for it. Nobody wants to fight, right? So you don't have to necessarily speak
Yeah.
on your behalf, but like, what are the passages, and are the passages that the people use to call out people who are eating clean meat in the 66 books, or are people going outside of that in order to condemn meat eaters?
Yes, yes, and yes. So I haven't gone deep into researching it. It's kind of like how I feel about like some other like more disturbing topics that I don't need to go deep into the research in order to understand that exists and is not good or whatever. So I haven't gone super deep into it, but I saw that post also about like if the father told you to stop eating meat, would you for him? And I was like, yes, absolutely. Like I already did, so no problem. Just like keeping Torah, cool. I'm already eating clean, so no problem. But there were some people that were more intense on there. And I was reading some of their comments, and so there are some things that I do agree with. There's many things that I don't, but there are extra biblical books that they support that straight out say it's bad to eat meat, or they they understand the verses differently. There's also things within the Bible, such as this is something that I do agree with. King James translated food as meat. Um, doesn't necessarily mean like animal tissue, right? It's like our daily bread is our meat. Um, the stuff that's nourishing us that we consume is our meat. But King James said meat, and so everybody's like, look, meat. But if you look at the meaning of the word, that's not necessarily it. There's places in the Bible that talk about honey, and the word for honey, davash, actually just means a sticky sweet syrup. And commonly it was made from dates that were boiled down. Um, I don't know if you've had date syrup before, it's delicious, but that comes from a tree. So there's no question of it that if that's clean or not. Whereas honey comes from bees, and we know that bees aren't a clean animal. So there's actually a different word that describes like honeycomb, like from a bee, like what Samson had from the lion's carcass. And and so yeah, Samson did a lot of things that were no-nos. And so sometimes people are like, look, Samson ate honey. And I'm like, but he wasn't supposed to touch anything that's unclean, such as the dead lion, that he ate this honey out of. So it doesn't make it right that he did it. Um, and then also in translations, if you look, it depends on the translation of with Yeshua, that they gave him fish and honey or honeycomb. Um, in one of the accounts of after he came to his disciples after he was raised again, and depends on the translation on whether it says honeycomb or not. Some don't even have it, but people would also argue that like where it says that he had fish, that maybe he didn't actually even have fish at all. So I don't know all the details of that argument, but people are saying that he didn't have fish, he didn't feed fish to the people, that it was just bread. So so yeah, I can't speak in depth on that, but I can tell you about like some translational differences.
Well, and the way I see it is even if it said food versus meat, Yah still said what's our food and what's not. So if he said these are clean animals, this is your food, this is not your food, then for me it doesn't really change anything whether it said meat or food because Yah tells us what's food for us. So
Right. So in, I guess, Jenny, do you mind me okay. Because you were going to talk about Passover. If you want to talk about Passover next.
Okay, if you can hold your thought and remember. And also I want to talk about honey.
Yeah.
And also I want to talk about locusts because I recently and I want to talk about John the Baptist's camel hair coat. No, we don't have to talk about that. But do you believe that honey is biblically unclean?
That's a sticky topic.
Wow, we couldn't have
um,
planned that.
yeah, I couldn't miss the opportunity. So I am unsure on honey, honestly. I am a dirty vegan in that we use honey sometimes. Um, when we make our bread, we grind the wheat and everything, and the recipe calls for honey, and we've just never used anything else. So I have it, but otherwise, like when I'm cooking, I'll use maple syrup or date syrup or cane sugar. Um, Organic though, because we don't want to eat the ones that aren't organic because they use bone char, but that's a whole nother thing. Um, but anyways, we do have honey around, but I still question it because it is a product that comes from an unclean animal.
Mhm.
And I've gone into discussions with people. Some people believe that like if the animal's not dead, then you can have the product that came from it. So like drinking camel milk or even pig milk, they don't feel is a problem because the animal was alive. Um,
Sorry, do
and
pigs,
they
can you, sorry. It's reminding me of, did you guys ever see, is it in Something About Mary or one of these where it's Ben Stiller or
Yeah.
Meet the Parents and he's talking
um,
about milking the kitten? Like,
Yeah.
do people milk pigs? Stop. Sorry, continue.
I don't
Oh,
know that they do, but like that was the argument that they felt that it was okay because the animal's alive.
okay.
Um, I've seen a video where they milk almonds.
I
Very
love that
entertaining.
video. It's so funny. It's so funny. A few of us watched it. Me and two guys were dead laughing, and me, Jesse, and our friend were on the floor laughing, and his wife was looking at us like, what? Like, anyway, I'll
We
pass it
should put a
along to
disclaimer at the
Crissi.
bottom of the screen for like the
Yeah.
people that
I
that don't know it's a joke.
Oh, it's
yeah.
so good. But
Yeah.
you and I,
I've never seen that video, so
we'll make sure it's too perfect. I'll make sure I'm gonna link it into the comments in this video so people can watch it. It is just golden. So sorry, I will stop interrupting you as you talk about just don't say pig milk again because I actually almost puked.
Okay, sorry. If it's any consolation, I'm not drinking it either. But anyways, the argument is that like since the animal's alive and they feel that like it has to do with like dead animals that it would be okay. And I don't agree with that. But like so there's a line in my head, because of my understanding of Torah and also my understanding of like, what I'm going to have. And so I'm not sure about honey, honestly. Like I haven't heard anything compelling enough to feel like it's okay. It's something I'm still researching into.
Okay. Do you know, Tracy, have you looked into that at all? About honey being clean
no,
or
I
unclean?
have not.
I've never seen anybody really make a
Yeah.
massive
No.
argument that it was unclean. Like,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Some things are just we don't know. Like I mean, you were talked about John the Baptist wore camel hair, which we know camel's unclean, but he's not eating it. He's not consuming it either. But he wore it, right?
and I
Unless
did
that's a
a
I'll have
different
to look
animal,
into the
maybe.
Hebrew to
Yeah.
make sure that it's actually that.
It might have been a clean animal. I don't know. I've had questions too about like pigskin boots and like, is a foot touching a football? Like anyway, that's probably another show
Yeah.
for another
Well,
day.
for a pigskin, we know that the animal has to die for that. But for a camel hair, that it's just like a sheep. You can shear a sheep and not kill the sheep to get the fur, the wool.
Mhm.
Same with the camel.
Yeah.
You would shear the camel and use that for making the.
Now that I'm thinking of it, is it would be similar to like an alpaca, right? Which is probably in the same family as camels in terms of whether it's clean or not. Like I wouldn't want to eat an alpaca anyway,
Yeah.
but I would wear alpaca wool and I wouldn't even consider it a problem. But gosh, it's like every time you think you've figured out this stuff, there's always one more question. I actually saw the other day that I don't remember what rabbit hole I was down. but it was not only did John the honey and locust thing was that the locusts actually came from a locust tree and they weren't actually bugs. Do you
The
guys know
locust
anything about
bean.
that?
Yeah. That it's there's the school of thought that says that that's a mistranslation and that was actually the locust bean. Um, I believe that it could be the same as carob, but that he was able to get that and then
So
the
I
honey.
think that that probably comes from the school of thought, and none of the three of us are very are versed enough to talk about what I'm about to say. So I'll just say this, but I do think that that comes from the idea that John the Baptist was an Essene. And it
Mhm,
also comes from the same school of thought that says like that Jesus didn't eat fish. So in those two things, even though I don't have I'm not I'm trying to wean my way out of feeling rigid in the 66 books because I do think like I left church for a reason. I don't want to stay very rigid with it. I think that you have to go far and reach to make the argument that Christ wasn't eating fish. I don't know. Do you guys know if Jesus actually ate the fish? Like I also don't know why would he produce fish for people if it was not, you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't make sense to me if it was.
Well, I mean, he never sinned, right? And I think he probably ate lamb at Passover, because it was a commandment. So, I mean, that's one thing, I would say. And also, if you look at some of the history in Qumran, where supposedly the Essenes lived, which that name was given to them by some other people, they found animal bones and things where they actually sacrificed animals. So they were killing animals there, you know. So all these other things that people talk about, a lot of that comes from like the books that were not found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's books outside of even those books, you know, like the mystical books, I don't know what you call them, that were found by Egypt and stuff. So they weren't even things that were found there at the Dead Sea Scrolls. And there's a lot of evidence, like, because I love history now and studying all of this stuff and archaeology and the stuff that they found there disproves that theory that they were vegans and all of this stuff, you know, and those books that people, because some people will say those books were found at the Dead Sea Scrolls, but they weren't. They were found by Egypt somewhere, and they're like mystical books. And I think it's the same thing Paul was addressing with, you know, people saying that they couldn't eat meat and things like that. It's because it's like a mystical thing of, you know, I don't know if maybe you know some about that from your background, like you were talking about, with, you know, just it's like a spiritual thing, you know, so yeah, I mean, it's pretty interesting when you start really studying into what, like, the evidence versus what people say. You know, because I didn't really know much about the Dead Sea Scrolls until I started studying, because I haven't read all those books yet, but that's stuff I have found just studying these topics about what people are saying about these things and seeing what's true and what's not, you know. So,
That's our
you know,
work. That's it's hard to detangle. I think you guys both saw I put up a show today on this channel about you know what is new age and not, and it's just so we all need to have patience with each other and allow our sisters and brothers to work out their own salvation without, you know, being the one to make those calls for them. This is
yeah.
definitely
Well,
a
and
big
we shouldn't.
struggle.
Yeah, we shouldn't be scared to test these things
Yes.
either. We're
Yes.
supposed to test all things. So like me, when I see all this stuff going around, I look in the scriptures and see, well, what does the scripture say? Well, all the stuff you're saying, there's no evidence for it, and it goes against what the scriptures say. So I can say, well, what you're saying isn't true, you know, and we shouldn't be afraid to test. And that's something that I've done since coming to the Messiah in 2019. There's been many times throughout my, you know, going on 7 years, even as a Christian, where I changed my view on things because that's what we have to do. You know, we can't just be stuck on this one mindset of this doctrine or just whatever it is. When you see that the scriptures, you know, go against what you believe, you change your belief for what the scriptures say, right? And that's how we should all be. We're always learning. That's how we grow. and iron sharpens iron. So I like to hear what people have to say, and then I go search it out. Like we're supposed to be Bereans, we shouldn't be afraid. I mean, yes, have discernment, be vigilant, don't just believe everything. Like the Bible says, being tossed to and fro with every wind of doctrine, but we shouldn't be afraid to test these things either. So
Amen.
I
Thank
know
you.
you said that earlier on your post, and I definitely agree with that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I just see people
Yeah.
operating from a level of fear. And like for me, I've had so much fear, for example, around the new age that now I'm only finally getting out of the PTSD to be able to dive back into it. And I noticed from putting up that one post, like the thumbnail was up and people were like, yikes. And like people don't even want to watch it and see what was presented. They're just already have their backup. And that is largely like the whole New Age to Jesus movement was very bad for a lot of reasons of fear mongering and sort of delaying. And like they don't have the truth really. How I won't listen to a teacher who is not on the path of Torah because clearly they're missing something huge. Um,
Yeah.
so on that note of Torah, and you said Passover and meat, and I also understand from scripture that we are absolutely supposed to eat meat during the feasts. So, am I going to tell Yael that she's a dirty vegan sinner for not doing it? I'm not going to do that. I don't even know where I am in my understanding that I could make the assertion that it is a sin, but I know people do, and I think we're supposed to eat meat on Passover. So I can throw that over to you if you want to. I don't feel like, not to defend yourself, but like what is your position on being accused of sinning for not eating meat? Because we just talked about how we can be accused for sinning by eating meat.
Yes. Yeah, actually, I have been told that I am sinning and rejecting Torah because I don't eat lamb at Passover. Um, so there are people out there that do that, that say that kind of stuff. I would like if I could read Deuteronomy 16, um, where he's talking about Passover, and verse 5 and 6. You are not allowed to slaughter the Pesach within any of your gates, which Yahweh your Elohim gives you, but at the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell. There you slaughter the Pesach in the evening at the going down of the sun and the appointed time you came out of Mitzrayim. So, we're not supposed to do our sacrifices anywhere, just anywhere. We're supposed to do it where he puts his name, his approved place, which would be in Jerusalem at the temple. And we don't have one of those. We don't have a temple to do it at. So in that, I feel like nobody can be following it exactly. Not eating meat or eating meat, because we're not supposed to slaughter just anywhere. I have I have feelings about what most people get at the grocery store also. I know in the United States at least. I don't know how it is in Canada, but in the United States, you go to the grocery store, you pick up some lamb that's in like some styrofoam and plastic, you bring it home and you cook it. Um, all of the lamb that's sold commercially in the United States, I'm not talking about like small farmers or a homestead or anything like that, but at the grocery store, all of the meat is halal, which means that it's sacrificed to Allah in Allah's name. When that animal is dispatched, the person has to be Muslim and they invoke the name of Allah as they are slaughtering that animal. So anything that you're buying in the grocery stores is slaughtered to another god. So I don't see how that could be right. I know that there are people that, get together groups and they have a lamb or they have a goat, and it says to do that in the Bible, but I don't see how they are following any more than I am, because we're not doing it at the temple.
Well, and also the people, I don't know about everybody, obviously I can't speak for everybody, but like I have goats, and so instead of like for Passover, I haven't had one that I could eat during Passover yet. So before, because I'm still new to Torah, and actually I've kept Passover as a Christian because that's something that, the Passover and the Sabbath I kept as a Christian before coming to Torah. And I would just buy stuff at the store. And from where I buy mine, I never saw that it was halal or whatever because I wouldn't buy that. I don't buy that kind of meat because of what you said. But also the bones are broken, right, at the store when you get them, because I would get lamb shanks and the bones are probably broken, which you're not supposed to,
Well,
break
they're
a bone.
sawed,
And
but yeah, same thing. Yeah.
either way, right? Yeah. So, which I never, back then though, I wasn't keeping Torah, so I didn't think about that. Um, but like me, if I had my own goat or lamb, which I have goats, I would kill my own instead of going to the store and buying it from the store. But it's not a sacrifice, because I have animals here for food. I don't know, I don't personally know anybody who's following Torah who's sacrificing animals, like, like priestly, what do you call it? Like a Levitical sacrifice, right? Because we can't do that. Anybody who is doing that is sinning, right? Because, like you said, pretty much all the feasts, we cannot keep any of them the way Torah says we're supposed to keep them because we don't have a temple, we don't have a priesthood. So we do them as memorials. So nobody's keeping them the way Torah tells us to keep them because we can't.
Right.
So, that's why we do them as memorials. So, but like I said, if I had my own goat, I prefer to kill my own animal and eat it versus at the store because I don't know how the animal was treated or what it ate and all of that stuff, but it's not a sacrifice. It's not a Levitical sacrifice. It's just food. I mean, I'm not sacrificing animals here, but like Levitical sacrifice, I guess, because really the way I see it, it's still a sacrifice in a way, like just because it's like you can sacrifice your time, right? You can sacrifice that way, but it's not like a Levitical sacrifice because I think every life matters. Like for me, when I have chickens and I have goats and I still love them and I care for them and it's never easy to kill them. I don't think it should ever be easy to take a life. And I think that just reflects the sacrifice of the Messiah and the system that the Father put in place because of our sin. I don't think it's supposed to be easy either, like the taking of life. Um, but that's just how it is, after, when we were talking about going back to the garden, before and then after the fall, how things changed.
Yeah, let's
Um,
talk about that. I would love to talk about that. Let me
yeah,
read. Can I read? Yael, did we are you still holding on to a train of thought from the last time I
Yeah.
said I was going to read?
Well, I just wanted to emphasize my thought about about people that think that it is a sin to not eat lamb at Passover. I don't think that they're following any more or less than I am. I'm remembering, and I'm not, we're remembering Yeshua.
Are you
He is our
saying
Passover lamb.
because of the supermarket meat, like do you think that they could potentially be following more than you if they're the ones who are sacrificing their own lamb?
Unless they're sacrificing it at the temple in Jerusalem, then
Okay,
they're not
maybe
following
that's
it
it.
as
But
much
like,
as I'm not.
are we not the temple? Like from when the woman at the well and the conversation she had with Jesus, and he said, we can worship from wherever. I think that's the same reason. I don't know about you guys, but like I definitely for Sukkot, I pitch a tent and I don't worry about it being in profane land because we are the temple.
I pitch a tent and do Sukkot and everything because I feel that it's a rehearsal. But it's not actually um I'm not following the rules because you're supposed to do it in Jerusalem, right? You're
But you
supposed to
don't
go
think
to
that,
the
so
land.
you all know, oh, you all know, and it will happen again any day now,
Well, we got to
that
get through Passover wars first.
yes, we'll get through Passover wars. Then we're gonna. I just got it hit me like a ton of bricks. I had done Sukkot 2 years in a row. This will be my third coming up, but last year was the first year that I really did it, and I was really, and I was blindsided by the two groups of people who were putting out that dialogue, and there were only two ministries that this is coming from, saying that it's profane land and we're not allowed to pitch a tent. But for me, I guess it's still some stuff that I have to untangle, because I don't see the difference between being allowed or supposed to pitch a tent outside of Jerusalem because we're the temple, for the same reason that I don't see why we would have to be killing the lamb. Like, maybe I'm just confused, but I feel like they're the same thing, because of that conversation where he said the time is, and it will be that we'll be able to worship from everywhere because we are the temple.
Well, I think that we can worship the Father from anywhere, but I think as far as like doing Levitical sacrifices, I don't think we're supposed to do that because you have to be a Levitical priest, right? Because there's a system in place. I mean, I know he took that away, I think, as punishment, but when he comes back, there's going to be a priesthood, right? So I don't think we can just do whatever we want as far as that goes, but like we can't just put
Right,
ourselves in the
well, we're not
place of
supposed to be
that.
doing
But
this sin, like the idea of doing a sin sacrifice, like that is out the window. We're not doing sin sacrifices, but as you mentioned a minute ago, Tracy, there's all kinds of sacrifices that are still
yeah,
appropriate to do, that we are still supposed to, but we're not slaughtering a lamb to atone for our sins. I think that's something that people freak out about. Jesse and I
yeah,
did our very first video on the Jenny and Jesse show 1 year ago, when I had an Orthodox sister friend. She's probably blocked me by now, I'm not sure, but she had asked me like all these questions about, well, what do you mean you're doing Passover instead of Easter, and what do you eat, and all these kinds of questions. I was like, well, we're supposed to eat a lamb. And she's like, well, what do you Susie May did a good rendition of an episode that's going to come out soon in Hobby Lobby, where she's asking John God, what do you mean you're going to eat a lamb? That's cannibalism. um anyway, so it's been a year since we did that first show on Passover and exactly this thing, and it was way less clear for me than it is now. But I guess the gist of it was that no, we're not doing sin sacrifices anymore. He was our spotless lamb. That's how I see it. So for anybody, whether we're eating lamb or not at Passover, we're not killing the lamb in order to atone for our sins like the priesthood would have been. I guess that's the
yeah. For me, it's just a meal. It's just food. It's not like a Levitical sacrifice. I'm not doing that, and I'm not doing it for atonement. It's just a meal to remember, like the Messiah said. Well, we go all the way back, obviously, to the first Passover when, because I do it with my boys. And so we read those verses and then we talk about, the Messiah and just all the verses in the New Testament about it and what the Messiah said about the new covenant. And we also wash each other's feet and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I think people forget the point. And obviously, those in Judaism, they're missing the Messiah. And then those in Christianity, they don't understand most of, I don't know, most of the Bible, because it from the beginning to the end, you can see this beautiful story and how all these things he put in place point to his son. And like they don't even know that all the feast days are about the Messiah and, even his return, so it's just like this beautiful thing that they're missing. And it really makes me sad for them because they don't know. And, so like for me, it's still mind blowing when I look at all of this and, I'm still in awe about it. And yeah, I mean, it's just because they don't understand what like the system that the Father put in place, that there's all kinds of different sacrifices and offerings. It wasn't just for atonement, like, so yeah, I mean,
But should we be doing the sacrifices other than sin and atonement anywhere other than the temple? My question, um, Jenny, you mentioning that, we're all the temple now, right? Because of Yeshua. If we are the temple everywhere that we are, then why did Paul say that he must by all means keep the feast? He had to get to Jerusalem.
Well, and that's when they still had that system. It wasn't taken away yet. They still had a priesthood in the temple at that time. Because at 70 AD, we know that's when everything, because the Messiah, when he was here, he mourned for Jerusalem and he was talking about the destruction that was going to come. And that happened in 70 AD. So, when the early disciples were there, they still had the temples and all these things.
When was it said
And
that
he was,
we were the temple, we had the Ruach in us? When was that?
the Messiah said that when he was here
Uh-huh.
walking the earth. Yeah. Hmm.
But they still had the temple physically.
Hmm.
So if it was things were going to change, then they would have been changed by the time Paul's saying that.
Well, I mean, Paul still kept Torah, so that's what Paul was doing. He was following what the Torah said.
And Yeshua kept
So,
Torah.
yeah, so just like when he went and gave the sacrifice, even after the Messiah, had already risen and stuff, Paul gave a sacrifice and did the Nazirite vow, right?
Mhm.
But it wasn't for atonement. It was just because that's what the law said, that this is what you do when you take a Nazirite vow. So he was keeping Torah, and um, that's why I don't do sacrifices at all. Because like I said, we don't have those systems in place right now. I think that stuff's on pause. It was taken away, right? When the destruction of the temple came, the priesthood was taken away, the temple was taken away. And we know that when the Messiah returns, that New Jerusalem's going to come and those things will resume, right? Under a different priesthood. So,
For a time. Yeah, but
yeah,
in the beginning and in the end, we know that it says that there's not going to be like death of animals in the
That's a
garden.
great
right,
thing. That's a great thing to come to. Can I read Genesis 1?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did it happen? I had it in my head to ask you ladies if you knew what the change was and when the change was. So we have Genesis 1:29 to 30. God also said, Look, I have given you every seed-bearing plant on the surface of the entire earth and every tree whose fruit contains seed. This will be food for you. Probably King James says this will be meat for you, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
So that is in the garden. Then we had the fall. I don't know what I'm missing, what context either of you might have that I don't have, but in Genesis 4, Abel was he kept sheep and he offered up his first fruits of an animal. He sacrificed an animal. So at some point there, he was giving instruction to sacrifice an animal because that's what the father wanted. So that's just after I think if I understand correctly, in the garden before the fall, no one was nobody, no animals or humans were eating flesh. After the fall, something changed, and now even though our father does not change his mind, something happened, and now he's asking for meat sacrifices. So that's all I know. I don't know if you guys know anything more than that.
The New
Well,
Messianic Version, by the way, does say meat, that it would be meat for you.
I was gonna say, did Yah kill an animal to clothe Adam and Eve after the fall? Okay, so the father was the first one to kill an animal
Hey,
then.
yeah, wow.
And then he talked about how basically he prophesied the Messiah, right? And then he put all these things in place that pointed to his son, but obviously it was a long time. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of scriptures where I think Yah, just because it's not in there, how did Abel know how to do a first fruits offering? Because I think that's probably what it was. I don't know for sure, but he knew how to give an offering and it was accepted. Um, we see Abraham as well. There's lots of like proof texts that show even before Sinai, they were following his commandments. So yeah, I mean, even before Noah, right? Abraham was following the Father's commandments. Um, so yeah, it says in Genesis 26:5, the Abraham obeyed my voice and kept my charge and my commandments, my statutes, and my laws. So I think he gave his laws to his people even before. And like you said, Abel, he killed an animal as well. So,
Does it say
and
anywhere
it does, I was
in all
going to
those
say, because we
places,
know, oh, sorry, go ahead.
in all those places that you cited, does it say that they actually ate the animal?
It does not.
Until,
That's what I
oh,
was just going to say, because we know with, a lot of the sacrifices and offerings, they were eaten, right? We do know that whether it was the person bringing the offering or the sacrifice or the priest would eat it, they were commanded to eat it. That's it's a commandment. Um,
there were plenty that were
but
burned
yeah,
whole though.
yeah, that's what I mean. It just depends what type of offering or sacrifice it was, because each different one had different commandments. There were ones that they were commanded to eat it, whether, like I said, it was the priest or the person bringing it, or, whatever. They weren't just killing animals and just throwing them to the side and letting them go to waste. But the father got the best, right? The fat and the stuff. And yeah, I mean, that's what I was just gonna say is that well, the father killed an animal, but it didn't say whether Adam and Eve ate it or anybody ate that. And then Abel gave an offering, but it doesn't say whether he ate it or not. It just shows that he did kill an animal and that the father killed an animal. Um, yeah,
So,
and then
um, yes, the first animal that was killed
yeah,
that we have record of was to clothe Adam and Eve. But
yeah,
the thing about the sacrifices for atonement, whatever was done, like what Adam and Eve did, that deserved death. And so an animal was substituted for them. And
hmm
that I think that that must have been so traumatic to be living in the garden where like there's no violence, no death, nothing, and then to see an animal die on your behalf, to see like and to be wearing that skin as a reminder, that had to be so
yeah,
traumatic to see that. Um, I just made a song um about this that like when we're in the grocery store and there's a piece of meat because I don't really actually believe that any humans are actually carnivores. I believe that they're necrophores because they're eating an animal that's already been killed. They're not like ripping it apart with their teeth and eating like the feathers and the fur and the blood. We're told not to eat the blood. Um, so humans are eating dead animals, not still living animals. But anyways, when we go to the grocery store and we select a piece of meat and we bring it home, we're really detached from the whole system. Like when you're homesteading like yourself, you get to see
yeah,
like you get to know that animal and you get to be there and when it's dying and you probably even think of that animal when you're eating it. Where like the main population of people that are eating meat are very, very detached from that. When I was in school for massage therapy, it was such a funny thing. We were learning about like different muscle groups, and the teacher said, "Now this is the I can't remember the filet mignon of the muscles or something like that." Like he referred to it as a cut of beef, and one of my classmates was mortified, and she was like, "You mean meat is muscle?" And we were like, "Yeah, what did you think it was?" And she's like, "The meat." Like she had no idea because we're so detached from like where our food comes from. But these people were not. And so in the song it talks about how like we're detached, but then like in the times of like doing the sacrifice, you probably raised generations of the animals before that, and that animal represented like security for your family. It would be like wool that you could
hmm
shear, it would be milk that you can make cheese with. It would maybe father future generations if it's a male. Um, and so, or it could be income, you sell it as meat, right? So taking an animal like that to the temple and sacrificing it, that represents like the end of that animal's ability to provide for your family. It would be massive. And to participate in that animal dying, to put your hand on their head and confess your sins and know that this animal is bleeding out on your behalf, and to look in its eyes as it's dying, that would hit your heart so hard. I think that we would never want to sin again if we had to take part in something like that. And so I don't think that those sacrifices were ever done lightly, where people nowadays just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have some meat, you know. It's the context is lost, the weight of the situation is lost. And I think that if people these days had to participate in dispatching their animals, I think that there would be a lot less meat eating also. Sorry, I
Well,
don't
I don't
remember
know if there'd be
where I
a
was
lot
going with
less.
all of that.
It might depend on the people, because I know a lot of people in Torah who homestead, and they agree with you. I agree with you. I actually did a video when I processed my own chickens, and I talked about all that stuff you were talking about, how we're so detached. People are so detached, you know. Like I said, taking a life should never be done lightly, and you should never have like where people can just do it and it doesn't bother them. Like you know what I mean? It should always be hard. I think that's how I feel about it. And I always think about the Father and the Messiah and all these things, you know, that you're talking about, because it should never be easy to take a life. And that's what I mean, even just, you know, that animal is still sacrificing its life so that I can have food and feed my family, right? So I still appreciate it. I appreciate my food more because I raise the animal, I care for it, I even love it, and know that it's still going to be my food. And so when you're just buying stuff at the store, like you're talking about, people are so disconnected. And, you know, that's something I've talked about before. So there's a lot of people who are homesteaders like me who understand that. And it is really sad though, because I think that it should, like, even just people in general, I don't think the father meant it to be that way, the way the systems are now, because they're missing all of that. And, you know, like I said, when I do it, I think about the Messiah and the animal's life, you know, for ours. And you know, I had in school we had a 4-H teacher, and he was talking about how he was like in the show barn where they had cows, and he was teaching some, like, a group of kids that came by, and they didn't know where milk came from. And like he had a father come back and was like yelling at him, and he's like, "Why are you lying to my kid and telling him that milk comes from a cow?" He's like, "Milk comes from the store." And like he was being serious. And it's just really sad, honestly, that people don't know stuff like that and they are so disconnected, because I agree with you, you know, and just me personally, just how I live. I think the way a lot of us are being called to live, there's a lot of us being called to do what I'm doing and to be reconnected to these things, you know. And that's what we see in the Bible, you know, how they would have lived is way different than the systems that we have in place now. And so, yeah, I definitely agree. I definitely agree with you.
The one thing that don't I don't want to say I disagree with you on, I'm not, but I would challenge the statement is that you said that you have to do this to feed your family, but you can actually feed your family without doing it. Like we have vegetables and fruits and um, all sorts of non-animal sources that can nourish us. So we don't have to actually kill the animals. It's because you want the meat.
But I
Well,
do
yeah, I mean,
like for sure many I was going to ask you, and obviously you are fine, but many people will assert that we absolutely need the nutrients we get from meat in order to live a healthy life.
Yeah.
I know many vegans who got gravely ill by not having proper nutrition. I believe that for myself and my daughter, who we both didn't consume eggs, I mean, we were vegetarian at crucial times in our development, and I think it affected us both later in life. Like I think she has issues now because she was not eating meat when she should have been eating it. I mean, I could be wrong. I know some people say human beings are meant to be vegan, and other people say human beings are meant to be carnivore. And I just learned a new term saying that human beings eat dead animals, which is absolutely true. Nobody eats a live animal. So I
Yeah.
don't know without
Well,
taking heaps of supplements. Like I remember always taking certain amounts of supplements because I didn't think that I could get what I needed from not killing an animal. But as a vegetarian, I had the exact same point of view as you. I was almost like it can be a detriment to myself and my health, kind of like you said. If that makes me weak, fine, I'll take it. I'm not killing an animal just so that I can do have better health. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Um, well, I've heard of people that have said that, they tried going vegan for X amount of time and they were very sick. And I've not had that experience myself. I have known people that claim that they're vegan because they like to eat, French fries and Oreo cookies. And technically those are vegan, Like I'm sure that with your diet, Jenny, when you were showing pictures of when you were doing the Daniel fast and you said that you used to eat like that, I'm sure that your diet was very healthy, but just because you say you're vegan doesn't mean that you're having a healthy or balanced diet. Um, the only thing that I'm aware of that I have to supplement is B12, which there is B12 in vegetables and fruits and things like that, but it's much higher in animal products. So that's the only thing that is recommended that vegans actually like should definitely take to supplement their diet. Um, but I also take iron because I've been anemic, but guess what? I've been anemic when I used to eat all the meat. Like I had meat at every meal because I thought that you had to have meat in order to be healthy. Um,
I mean, and the reality is too, I gave up supplement. I don't really take any. I'm lazy with it. But when I met Jesse, he was taking a number of supplements and made me remember that the soil quality now is not what it used to be. So everything is depleted, whether we're vegetarian, vegan, or we eat meat, we're
yeah,
all probably missing what we were originally supposed to have.
yeah. And if we're drinking water, then we're drinking pollutants because all the water is polluted. We're doing our best, whatever decision that we're making for whatever we're putting into our body. Well, not everybody's doing their best, but most of us are trying our best.
Can I ask you? I have
yeah.
two more questions and then we can kind of wrap it up. I remember Crissi having a conversation, Crissi slash AL slash Hebrew Hahas, whatever name we're going to call you by, all of these beautiful names. And it's possible people are watching this video and they got to this point and they don't even know you're Hebrew Hahas. So
I'd be like, what?
here you are. Um, we exposed you. I wanted to ask you because I have a faint memory of you saying, "Fine, eat the meat."
Yeah.
So can you trace that back for us? And I had another addition to that that I don't think came from you um about divorce. So I
Um,
don't know if we can link those two. I think you know what I'm
Actually, I think it was for me.
it might have been from you. Okay. Yeah.
So actually, I think that I would rather talk about the divorce thing first. Um, if that's okay. So in the beginning, men and women are eating, vegetables, fruits. Um, in the end, it says that we will be doing the same thing. I'm referencing their Isaiah 11:6 through 9. It says that the lion's going to be eating grass, right? Like they're
I'm going
not
to
going to be.
interrupt you and just throw this out here because I'm going to forget it and you're going to remember your train of thought. Do you think this is why when people go back, like it's almost like they call it the back to Eden diet or something like
Mhm.
that? Like is it almost a rehearsal for them of they're like, okay, in New Jerusalem, we're not going to be eating meat, so let's stop eating it now. I'm just throwing that out there.
I
You don't
think
even
that
have
the
to answer
point,
it.
their reasoning for that is because in the beginning, like our bodies were created to eat plants, and so they're going back to that. That's like the original design. Um, but it says that, in the end, it'll also be like that. Although, if my Messiah hands me a lamb burger, I'm going to eat it, and I'll be grateful, and it'll be the best lamb burger I've ever eaten. I know this, but I just don't want to have it until then. Um, anyways, so in the beginning, it was one man and one woman. Later on, after the fall, there's polygamy, right? What's the name of the guy that Ada and Zilla are his wives that he brags that he killed somebody? Um, this is because not because this is the original design, but this is because man has fallen and
Lamech,
because
was he the first
yes,
poly? Yeah, okay.
it's the first documented
I'm
case.
even more dangerous than Cain, and I'm gonna have all the wives. I don't know why he talked like he was in Alabama.
I don't know. So, that's the first documentation of that, right? But we know that that continues. And so we know that eating meat happened. We know that the wickedness was great in the world, whether or not that's related to eating meat, or maybe it's unclean meat, um, that was being eaten also. But later on, the Father gives us some guidelines, right? Um, if you're going to divorce your wife, here are the rules. Like in the beginning, it wasn't so, but because the hardness of your heart, here are the rules. If you're going to marry multiple wives, like that's not my ideal design for you, but because of the hardness of your heart, you're doing it anyway. So here's the rules. And I feel that it's the same with meat. In the beginning, it wasn't so. In the beginning, they're not eating meat, but people are eating meat and they're craving the flesh. And so here are the rules. This is what is meat for you, and this is what isn't. So that was, I think that that was the point that you were mentioning. You could have heard something from somebody else too, but I think
No,
that
that was
that's,
it. I mean, that was it. You made this motion of fine, have the meat.
yeah.
Fine, have your
So
divorce. Go
in
for it.
Numbers 11, I didn't mark this one. Hold on. Hold music, elevator music, maybe. Numbers 11. So the Israelites are out in the desert and they're being given manna, which is like, the food of the angels, right? It has everything needed for survival and it actually tastes like donuts, basically, like fried dough, sweetened with honey, which we're not sure what honey that is, but whatever. So they are getting like the most wonderful, ideal food. But here they are. You can take the Israelites out of Egypt, but you can't take Egypt out of the Israelites so easily, right? And so they are craving the leeks and the onions, and they're craving the flesh pots. Um, so they start complaining, like they have this manna, but they're like, "Oh, if we only had meat." And Moshe, is like, can I give them all this meat that they want? I can't do it myself. And the father says, you want meat? I'm going to give you meat. It's going to be so much that's going to be coming out of your nostrils. And then the quail descend. The people happily pick up so much quail that, this is more quail than they could probably eat before it goes bad, right? But as soon as it's between their teeth, they die. And it's because they lusted for the flesh. They wanted the meat so badly. They're they're still in that frame of mind of Egypt, and the father gave them meat, but it was because of the hardness of their hearts, because they lusted after the flesh. They didn't need it, and
Yeah.
it obviously wasn't good for the ones that died. Not everybody was wiped out, but
And that
these
was
were the
something that I had said, and then you said something smart after it, Tracy. And I said, okay, remember the smart thing you said was I was reflecting on how, like, honestly, full disclosure, there's delicious meatballs in my fridge that I made last night. And I'm gonna go eat them when we're done this recording. That's where I'm at. I crave meat. I don't crave really, well, sometimes I crave a pineapple or strawberries, but there's this carnal like thing in me, almost like a dirty lion, that will crave meat that we don't crave, like we don't go, it's like almost a bloodthirst. It really is. Like that, again, as somebody who loves eating meat, I recognize the fact that we are very much in our flesh when we're going after and lusting after meat versus the people I know who don't eat it for spiritual reasons, I'm seeing that they're getting away from the flesh into the spirit. And like again, I get a little weirded out because I knew a lot of Kundalini yogis who like you would almost see them floating off the ground. They were so not anchored to the ground because they were very much up here in their, you know, their third eye chakra or whatever. It's like this up, almost like they're almost like this like ascending up as you see them in real time. But anyway, we don't crave, I don't crave tofu ever. It's like a internal, like, you know what I mean? And it's a
I
like
don't crave
people,
tofu either if it's any consolation.
no, and it's almost like you know, the way we can notice Christians like salivating about their bacon, like how people are like, oh, gotta have bacon, can't give up the bacon. But realistically, I feel that way often about cow. Like I'm always looking for steak, especially when I'm like at that time of my month. I know it's an iron thing, so I don't even know if it's bad. I'm just, it's a human thing that I experience, that I crave meat where I don't. I've got a juicy papaya over there. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I could get in the mode of craving fruit only too, because fruit is delicious. Like he gave us all of these amazing things that we can eat, even if we're not eating meat. He gave us a wide variety of plants that we can eat. Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there because I'm getting hungry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've had people tell me like I would be vegan except for bacon. And like they think that that's like a dig, but really like I feel sorry for them because that just tells me that like you don't have self-control. You're giving into,
I
like what
I
you're
constantly, my whole life, it was a joke in my house. That would pull me off the vegetarian bandwagon every time was cooking pork, whether it was bacon or like Italian sausage barbecue season. Every summer, I would like stop being vegetarian for the day so that I could. And I had a rib story too, where I was vegetarian for many years, and then I met the man who's now my ex-husband. Fine, have your divorce, you know, and and we went out and we drank a bunch and we got back to his house and his roommate was cooking pork ribs. And after many years of not digesting any meat, I ate a whole
Mm,
stack of pork ribs, you know, and I thought I had to go to the hospital. Like my stomach was not happy. So anyway,
yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I wanted to say that I don't think it's bloodlust. I don't like when people say that because it's not
I don't know. That's just
like we're
what
just
came to, it's just
lust.
what came to my mind.
Yeah.
We didn't,
Well,
and
I
we
know
will
that's an
not.
argument, yeah,
I
that
didn't
they
know that.
use
I didn't know that.
that we're just lusting after the flesh and it's bloodlust and it's, that's why they say it's wrong, but I don't really think that's the case. I think we crave things that our body needs.
Mhm.
So obviously, like I said, we're made out of protein and cholesterol. Our brain is made of cholesterol, so it's things that our body needs. Just like with my goats, for an instant, right? You can put a mineral buffet out, and they will only go to the minerals that they need. So I think it's how Yah designed us, and I think that something changed after the fall, right? Our bodies weren't like this in the garden. Adam and Eve, I think, were different than what we are. So I think everything changed. And I think, too, is that Yah is the one who's going to restore everything when he comes back, right? The lion's not eating only grass right now. It's not, those are things he's going to restore. Those are his promises. So I think, we should wait on him, right, to restore those things instead of trying to do it ourselves. Like I said, if you want to eat vegetables, I don't have a problem with that. Like I said, it's just when you try to say that I have to only eat vegetables because I'm bloodlusting and it's a sin for me to eat flesh and, things like that. And for me, for my health, I do have to have those things for me to have my, optimal health for me personally. So that's why I do it. That's why I choose to do what I do. And the Father gave these things to me. They're a blessing, right? We see in the Bible that He gave them, like with Job, He took away all this stuff, but then He gave them so much more, flocks and herds and all of these things. Those are blessings, right? So I don't think people should look at them like it's a bad thing to eat the things that God gave us as blessings, right? Now, when it's time and if He changes everything and we're not there is going to be no more death, right? Eventually, but we're not there yet. So this is just where we are. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with eating meat and doing whatever it is that keeps your body healthy, right? And so I don't think we should condemn people for that or use scripture to say that we should be eating a certain way, like back in the garden. But we're not in the garden right now, are we? It's things aren't restored yet. We're waiting on that. Like it says, the whole earth is groaning together. Even the animals kill each other, and all this stuff that's happening. That's eventually going to stop, right? Like that's why we're all waiting for the Messiah to come back, because everything will be changed when he comes back. But even when New Jerusalem comes, there's going to be sacrifices. So I don't think even when he comes back, that's not going to change yet. That's like at the very end, right? When he kills the last enemy, which is death. But that's the last thing that he does, because even in the millennial reign, there's going to be sacrifices and offerings. That's what prophecy says. So, that's the way I look at it, is that these things are gifts for us. And so if he says eventually, we're not eating meat anymore, I'm fine with that. But I think at that time, we're going to have ascended bodies, and we're not going to be like we are now. Our bodies will be different.
I can totally get down with that. And in the meantime, for people who do not want to eat meat, that is just what it is. I
Yeah.
had this massive reflection today of like on these topics of like, why do you need everybody to eat like you? Like, and I'm not talking about unclean. We know that there are certain things that were never food. We know that nobody was
Yeah.
ever supposed to eat swine,
Well, and I
regardless.
never liked bacon, by the way. I never liked bacon. I was not a big bacon person. I've never really liked it, or like ham and stuff.
I
The
loved it, and it was
texture.
just going back to it all the time, even though I was convinced
Yeah.
as a vegetarian who was, a yogi, not to eat it. I did not become convinced truly not to eat swine until I knew that it was in his instructions and it was an abomination like that. Now you
Yeah.
cannot, I gag thinking about pig milk.
Yeah. I mean, I'd eat a pork chop, but I wouldn't. Bacon and ham and all that just kind of grossed me out. I never
Yeah. I
liked
always
it,
had a
but
hard time. I had a hard time with the shellfish. Like I've never eaten I might not even know the English name for these kinds of things. Like the one with a shell that has like
the clam,
yeah,
is it a clam?
any of that stuff. I really never
An
ate,
oyster.
yeah, oysters. I've
Yeah,
never
that
had
stuff, yeah, that
oyster.
stuff grosses me out too. That
When you
stuff's just,
look, like
yeah, I
it's the
wouldn't.
same, they marketed pigs well, but when you look at like seafood, like I go to the grocery store and I see a bunch of like little shrimps in a package, and I mean, I have a different reaction looking at all these little creatures in the package than I do a slab of meat. It just is. But I have
Yeah.
gone through times in my life where I see a steak in a package and it makes me feel sick to my stomach. And it's often it's in our head or it's in our hearts, and that's just what it is. We are not the condemners. It's not. Anyway, you guys
Yeah,
are
it's not our
awesome. Did
job.
did anybody have anything else that they wanted to say to end this off? You guys did great. Not that I thought it would go any different, and I'm glad that you guys don't even really know each other very well, right? Is this kind of a first time encounter aside from the chat we started?
Yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
say
we talked on Facebook a couple times, but yeah, I mean, the first time I saw her, well, Facebook, but the interview that you did was the first time I've seen her face, but I didn't know until then that it was Hebrew haha. So yeah,
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm glad to have helped to connect you two, and bless you both. Thank you so, so much. I hope that this conversation is helpful. I mean, I hope that people who feel the need to tell other people what they should or shouldn't be eating, aside from Leviticus 11, um,
yeah, of
to
course.
just back off.
thank you
Yeah,
for
it's like you were talking about earlier about everybody has to believe what you believe and do what you do, and everybody's kind of on their own journey, and it's everybody needs to be led by the Spirit. Let the Spirit lead them and teach them. It's not our job, to convict people. That's the Holy Spirit's job. Like I mean, obviously it's okay to tell somebody what the Bible says, right? If the Father, it's the Father's word, right? It's not our word. It's not stuff we're just making up. It's something the Father says, then we know, well, this is, the Father says this is sin, and that's just that. But it's not our job to tell people what they can and can't eat, besides, like you said, what the Father. Like, it's not my job to say, hey, I eat carnivore because it helps me, so you all have to do it, because like in, her case, Chrissy's case, it's not going to help her, because
We're
we're all
and in
different
that we
too.
add
So
it's more adding to the Torah, which drives all three of us completely bananas when people have their own
yeah,
doctrines, and we're constantly doing it. Like,
Yeah.
this is a conversation for another day, but there's a whole war as we're
yeah.
talking about Black Hebrew Israelites all over my Facebook wall right now that I'm just gonna not even go and look at. I'm gonna go eat my meatballs and go to bed. Thank you
I feel
guys
like I
so
have to
much.
announce what I'm going to eat, but I don't know.
Well,
I
go eat
had
something
falafel
yummy.
yesterday though, so chickpea balls,
Yeah,
not
that sounds
meatballs.
great. Yeah, they're
I
awesome.
made I made
I love
sloppy
them.
joes.
Yeah, dirty, sloppy Carnival Joes.
Yeah, from scratch actually. That was my first time. Sister Sherry
Nice.
helped me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
crock pot sloppy joes are a good bet actually. That's a go-to Sabbath dinner for me. I don't usually get a good prep day on Friday because my kids go to school 100 kilometers away. So I'm not usually home on a Friday, so I'll often on Thursday night prepare a crock pot, and sloppy joes is probably what I'm going to do this week. Thank you.
Well, then I'm
Although
gonna
How
have
do
to
you
maybe
make
do
vegan
that?
sloppy
Do you
joes.
all right,
do you,
give us
do you
that.
cook
I'm
the
down.
meat before? I'll have to ask you about that.
Hmm?
Do you cook the meat before and then put it in the crock pot?
It depends. It really depends on what I'm making.
Okay. Yeah, because like I'm still learning, with that
Well,
for Sabbath and stuff. So
crock pot is incredible. And a client of mine,
yeah.
I'll tell you the specifics. Anyway, it doesn't matter. A client of mine lent me her Instapot, which I have never actually had. I had one and it scared me with all the buttons, but she lent it to me so that I could check it out, and I have a feeling that I'm gonna like it. It actually has stainless steel inside, which I think is a little bit tougher to find. There's a lot of Teflon ones now, but it has stainless steel, and I'm gonna explore with that because I think like I have because I went to this Daniel fast. I'm eating more pulses than I was, I just gotten the meat and potato thing. So even as I'm starting to eat meat again, Jesse and myself are realizing like we don't need to be eating meat every single day. We got in the habit of it because it gets easy and like it's substantial but there's a wide my daughter gave up when she was maybe 9, eating meat because we would often go to the yoga ashram, which is just down the road here. Funny enough, I didn't live here. I lived in the city, and it was all vegetarian, and there was just such a wide variety of food that on her own at that age, she was like, why would I eat animals when I have all of this abundance of other food? So I see your heart, and that's where it is, Chrissy, and I mean, and I'm going to reflect more on this idea that because we're no longer in Levitical sacrifice mode, those of us who eat our lamb on Passover are not necessarily honoring it any more than you are by not eating it. I'm going to keep tossing that around because I mean, you guys know I'm new. I'm new here. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be able to
I'm
pull that.
new. I'm new too.
Yeah, Tracy and I are
Yep,
new
I'm
here.
new.
So,
Yeah.
I thought you said that you've been keeping Torah since 2019.
Me?
Yeah.
No, that's when I came to the Messiah in
Oh,
oh,
2019. And I
okay.
was a Christian up until last year.
oh,
But as a Christian, I kept Sabbath and Passover because I read it, because Paul said to keep it.
Hmm.
And, I saw those were two things I was convicted of as a Christian, but I didn't come to Torah until October of last year because it
Uh-huh.
was something I was always confused about because I saw these things and I was like, I think I want to learn about the feasts and stuff. And then I had other Christians, in my life who said, no, you don't want to do that because then you'll be trampling on the blood of the Messiah because he freed you from those things. And I was like, well, I don't want to do that, you know, so I kind of just put it aside. And it's
Mm.
stuff that just kind of kept coming around. And then when I was convicted to do Passover because I saw Paul said to do it in the New Testament, then I started keeping Passover as a Reformed Christian. And then I was convicted to do Sabbath. So I did those two things for probably 2 or 3 years before I came to Torah and understood that it was for me, you know, and that I was grafted in.
And you
And
weren't super
because that,
in, if I remember in your testimony, you weren't really in the Christian church. So you didn't have other people aside from random Christians in your life. It's not like
yes,
you
I
had.
had, well, like yeah, my husband was raised in a Christian family. So like my in-laws and like his whole family's Christian. So just people like that, you know, like my mother-in-law printed off this huge packet of why I shouldn't keep the feast from like Christian apologetics and stuff. And then I had another sister who lived in South Carolina, who her and her husband are Reformed Christians, and they were kind of discipling me because I didn't really have anybody else. I did check out a couple churches, but that I when I was invited to, but the one was really charismatic in it because I wasn't like coming into it. I knew there was a lot of stuff wrong with the Christian church, and I wasn't just going to go to any church, but I was looking for one in local fellowship because I was kind of wanting to do like a house church, you know, to gather with real Christians, you know, not like your Sunday Christian, like people who are actually, you know, because like a Christian is a disciple of the Messiah, right? That's what I believed back then, that a Christian is one who follows the Messiah. And there are a lot of people who claim to be a Christian but are not. So I was looking for, you know, people like me. And so that's why I never really found a church, you know, for the last 6 years. And then coming to Torah, looking for, you know, a whole Bible believing congregation. So, I mean, I did go to a Bible study. That's how me and Nicole first met in person. I actually met her online and we just happened to be, you know, 45 minutes away from each other. And she invited me to a Bible study through her church. And that was a whole thing because, you know, like I didn't do Christmas and stuff even as a Christian. And I didn't want them teaching certain things to my kid because they did. There was a lady who would teach the kids while we were doing our Bible study. And I said, that's fine. Just don't, we're not doing Christmas and we're not doing these certain things. And they didn't like that. They had an issue with it. So there was, you know, that too, but yeah. But
Wow.
as far
Thank
as Torah
you.
Go
goes,
back and
it's
listen to your testimony.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah, that
have
was just
before.
last year.
Yeah, yeah, it was one
Yeah.
of the first ones that I recorded, and I look back and I would like Tracy is warming up on camera. The last video I did with you, Tracy, Jesse's already seen it, even though it hasn't gone live, and he said, "Man, like, just keep practicing on camera, Tracy." And she's somebody that you got to keep having back on the show because you're just such a wealth of information, and you're way less shy even today than you, yeah, in your first testimony. You're so, I feel like I'm like trying to like get information out of you and like,
Oh
um,
yeah.
yeah, you're
I'm
great. Don't worry.
terrified of public
No,
speaking.
you're doing,
I don't even like my picture taken,
yeah,
honestly.
you're
That's
doing
like
amazingly.
I'm just shy.
It's one of the first things I said to you is like, you really remind me of Jesse because for him it was similar. Like he can write really well and like, you know, but then
Yeah.
when I tried to get him on the phone for the first time, he said, I would rather roll in glass. So now we're making all these
Yeah.
shows together and thank you both so much for coming to do this. This was
Yeah.
this exceeded any, no, I knew it was going to be great. You guys are awesome. I love you both so much. You're both two of
Yeah.
my favorite sisters and friends. It's really precious because there's so many wackadoos out there. So
Yeah. Well, and that's what I love about you, Jenny, and just people like us, like Crissi, and like they're kind of like, I don't want to say tribe, but your circle of people who like, you know, like we're on different calendars. I don't know what calendar you follow, but I know me and Jenny are on different calendars. You know, her day starts in the evening, mine starts at sunrise, and like none of that is a problem for me. Like, you know, that doesn't bother me at all. I don't think those should be things that like it doesn't bother me that she keeps Sabbath different than I do. Like, I don't know why people
And
have,
she even wishes us,
they
Crissi
get
and I are
crazy
on
about
the
it.
same calendar. It's one of the first messages that I ever sent her, actually. It was like, what the heck's going on with this? But like Tracy will even wish us a Shabbat Shalom on our Sabbath, you know, in our group fellowship. It's like it's we've been so blessed. People
Yeah.
come and go from that, but we only want to be around people who are respectful and who understand what the important issues are. And like we're even here for that reason, able to talk about such a contentious subject that most people wouldn't be able to sit here and calmly. A carnivore and a vegan on the Torah path has successfully had a conversation and nobody got emotional.
How dare we?
Yeah.
How dare we actually do that?
That's a meme. Let's go.
Can we
Let's go.
just
Yeah.
squeeze in a fight or maybe some animosity before we end this? No,
No.
with like being different calendars and everything, like you'll see on the Haha's page that I'll post Happy Passover multiple times because there's
Yeah.
all these different calendars.
Yeah.
I guess I already missed one. Somebody's already like finished unleavened bread. I
Mm.
wasn't aware of that calendar.
Wow.
But I'm excited that people are trying to do their best. I'm trying to do my best, but I don't know for sure that my what I'm doing as my calendar is correct. I know that the Father is going to set us straight someday.
Yep.
And I do believe
Yeah.
that there's going to be a lot of people that are embarrassed, like totally embarrassed that they caused wars over something that they were wrong on also.
And there's such a
Um,
handful of them, and there
Yeah.
are unknown. There's things that we cannot actually know because it's not totally spelled out. And then some people will go to the Dead Sea Scrolls and they'll go to other, we're trying to fill in all the blanks, but the reality is we don't have all the answers. So if you're, you know, you guys probably saw, I put that, I keep referring to it, but I put this beautiful picture in New York of a car that said Yeshua is Lord. Oh my. His name's Yahusha. Yeah, I think his name is Yahusha, but this car was beautiful. Lord means ball. Like, oh, guys, back off. You're missing the point. People are waking up to the Hebrew Messiah. Can we just celebrate that for 1 minute instead of like being totally insane?
yeah.
No, I
Yeah.
don't know why they think that Torah people are crazy because most of them are.
Torah terrorists be
Well, it's,
terroring.
I think there are a lot less. I think those people are just the loudest, you know.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I think people have to remember where we all came from,
yeah.
right? It's like you didn't just it, you know, it took me 7 years of studying, even as a Christian, to know a lot of the stuff I know, you know, and then also relearning stuff. I think we're constantly going to be doing that till he comes back, right? I
Amen. We're
mean,
supposed to,
so we
yeah.
have to
And
have grace and bear with one another. Like, you know, we're all different members, but one body. And we all, like it says, we all have different ministries and we all have different gifts. And, you know, it's just like with, oh, everybody has to speak in tongues or you don't have the Holy Spirit. Well, that's not what the scripture says. And, you know, like everybody has just different things. And, you know, I think that's what makes it beautiful. And we're supposed to love each other. And like the Bible says, that's how you know that we're his disciples.
amen.
And yeah, I think we're missing a lot of that. And it's not helpful. Even trying to wake up other Christians, you know, like people like me who didn't know, right? And who were humble though and seeking for the truth and not just because that drives people away, you know, that's not what the Father wants either. So, you know, we need to come together and what, you know, we believe in the Messiah, right? He's our Messiah, he's our master, and we shouldn't be fighting and attacking each other over differences or opinions, right? Because we don't know.
Preach. See, you're not even shy anymore. I love you guys. We'll see you very, very soon. Have a great
Love
night.
you.
Enjoy whatever thing you're going to eat. And I love you both. We'll
I'm
see
gonna
you
make
very
some
soon.
vegan sloppy joes.
All right. Send me the recipe.
Love
Shalom.
you guys.
Shalom.
It's
Bye-bye.
about
Shalom.
the soul. I'm covered, yeah. Not in gold or pearls or